Hey everyone, it's Steven. Today I have the 2024 Kia EV9 Wind. This is the mid-size, fully electric SUV from Kia, and it made its splashy debut back in 2024 with its boxy and unique styling. This is essentially the electric version of the wildly popular Kia Telluride, but actually rides on a completely different platform shared with the smaller EV6. So the EV9 was actually one of the first non-luxury three-row electric SUVs to be released, so it doesn't actually have that much direct competition. Other rivals such as the Rivian R1S, the Mercedes EQS SUV, those are all a lot more expensive than this. The 2024 EV9 starts just below $55,000 for the base trim, that is the light rear-wheel drive trim. This one is kind of the middle grade trim called the Wind. It gives you a standard all-wheel drive in this one, and you can step up all the way to the GT line, which is much more expensive, starts at about $73,000 for that one, but that one gets you a lot more cool styling elements and a lot more niceties on the inside. As tested, this one comes to about $66,000 for its MSRP. Basically no packages or anything actually available on this car. One thing I like that Kia does is they actually don't have much packaging on these trims. You just get the trim and that's all you get essentially. So the Wind trim has the larger battery, which is a 99.8 kilowatt hour battery, gives you 280 miles of all electric range. This is thanks to a dual motor electric setup, which gives you standard all-wheel drive on this trim. Again, you can get rear-wheel drive on the lower trims, but all the higher trims are going to be all-wheel drive only and give you a lot more horsepower. 379 horsepower and 443 pound-feet of torque gives you 0 to 60 times about 4.5 seconds for this huge SUV. Very, very scary, honestly. As expected for a larger electric SUV, you don't get the best fuel efficiency, 91 cities, 75 highway, for a combined 83 miles per gallon equivalent. All right, let's take a look at the exterior of the EV9. I love the styling on this vehicle. The color here is called Ebony Black. It's actually a $695 option, which I was kind of surprised by, but it looks pretty good if you keep it clean. Unfortunately, we just had a massive snowfall here in Chicago, so not the cleanest right now, but I think it still looks very attractive. You actually don't get many color options in the EV9 at the lower trims. If you step up to the GT line trim, which is the highest trim, you get like 8 different color options, but for some weird reason, the lower trims only get 4 color options. So the no-cost one is kind of like a platinum gray, dark gray sort of color. This is the Ebony Black. You've also got a white, and you have the beautiful ocean blue that is on all of the press releases, which I really wish this one had, but unfortunately this one is not the highest trim. So the front styling here is I love it. I think Kia has done such a good job. This is very similar to the Niro, the Sorento, the new Carnival, all of their vehicles. It's very boxy and angular, right? That's what Kia and Hyundai are really going for these days, is a very modern look with a lot of sharp edges. And I love the actual headlights. They're a very cool stacked design right there. One thing that I really miss on the Wind trim here, you only get it on the higher Land trim and the GT line, is you get these really cool, I think they call them cube LEDs. They actually create a cool little like display on the sides of the daytime running lights, which I think is super, super cool. I really wish this one had that. Honestly, without that, it actually looks a bit lacking at the front, right? There's not much here. You've got the new Kia logo, which looks very, very cool in my opinion. Much better than their old one. And otherwise, it's just kind of boring, right? It's just kind of like a bunch of plastic, essentially. The bottom here is kind of interesting, right? You have these interesting vents that kind of open and close. You've also got these aluminum parts at the very bottom. You've got a lot of aluminum across the entire vehicle, actually. And you'll notice you have a lot of like black plastic cladding around like the wheel wells, for example. It kind of makes it much more rugged, I would say. The only other notable thing about the front is that you do have a usable frunk. 1.8 cubic feet, unfortunately, so not that large. In the rear-wheel drive, you actually get a larger frunk, but for the all-wheel drive, it's a bit of a smaller one, but it is actually relatively deep. You can definitely fit some grocery bags in there. Going into the side profile here, very boxy and angular, right? This vehicle is quite large, and I mean, like, I actually love the design of these wheels because it really goes along with the theme of the vehicle. All these sharp edges, right? So these wheels are 19-inch alloy wheels. I think one of my favorite things about the Kia wheels here are that they actually have the Kia logo. Like, not even centered, it's like kind of on the side in the middle, right? Very interesting look. Otherwise, I'm not the biggest fan of aero wheels in general, but these kind of look cool. They look like little ninja stars, right? I think they're a pretty good base wheel to get for this trim. Otherwise, again, you've got a lot of that black plastic cladding around it, very, very reminiscent of other off-roading vehicles, right? Kia does say that the EV9 should be good for adventure and like, you know, off-roading and stuff like that. So pretty cool. I will say the Kia EV9 handled fantastically well in our crazy snowy conditions in Chicago. So I think it actually probably would do very well off-road as well. Again, lots of angles and like sharp edges all across here, but not the most interesting body lines, honestly. You do have an aluminum trim around the windows there, and you've also got roof racks as well. Finally, you'll notice that these door handles are actually popped out right now. I actually really like how they pop out. They're very simple, easy to grab. You just kind of open it like that. But when they're locked, they are flush. As expected with most EVs, they do have flush door handles. Going into the back here, you'll notice a lot more of those sharp edges, right? I love the zigzag weird pattern of these taillights. It looks so cool. It looks very similar to a CR-V or kind of like a Volvo, right? But it's more interesting in my opinion. You've got the Kia logo as well. You've got kind of an interesting spoiler at the top. They did a good job hiding the windshield wiper up here so it's not actually visible, which I think makes it look very nice and sleek, very, very aerodynamic, I guess I would say. You've got the EV9 badging there. There's no badging on the vehicle that actually indicates what trim the vehicle is though. Unfortunately, I really hate that. Honestly, I love when you can tell what trim a vehicle is from just the badging. I wish there was some sort of like wind badge, maybe with a little like wind icon. I don't know, I think that'd be kind of cool. Otherwise, again, very cohesive design elements in the back here. A lot of those sharp edges and kind of modern boxy look. Going into the trunk here, it is a power liftgate by default. You get 20.2 cubic feet of cargo space if you have the rear seats, or if you have all 3 rows up. So still pretty usable if you have all 3 rows up. Unfortunately, we don't have the 3rd row up right now because it's covered by kind of this like luggage compartment liner. But with the 3rd row down, you've got 43.5 cubic feet of cargo space. That is a lot of space. This is very deep, as you can see. It goes in a lot. You can also fold in the 2nd row with these nice buttons back here, so very convenient as well. You've also got some cup holders for the 3rd row back here. So again, this is supposed to be a family hauling vehicle. This is very practical, has an actual usable 3rd row. Finally, if you lower the 2nd row, you can get over 80 cubic feet of cargo space. That is a ton of space. This is a long vehicle. You can fit a lot of really large things in here. It makes it very practical for your trips to IKEA. All right, let's take a look at the interior of the Kia EV9. As you approach, the flush door handles pop out. Very, very cool. You've also got a nice indent right there that you can use to lock it. I love how they pop out, very easy to get in the car. I really like this key fob. This is a brand new Kia key fob. Looks very different from any other Kia products. It's a very interesting texture too. It feels luxurious and high quality. All the buttons are on the side. I feel like that is becoming more common these days and just very lightweight, very easy to put in your pocket. Feels nice. The first thing that I will make note of, unfortunately, is the fact that this vehicle trim has no seat memory. I think that is ridiculous. You've got power adjustable seats here. You've got a lot of adjustability for both the passenger and the driver, but there's no seat memory, which is ridiculous. Like, I don't understand. Like, there are so many vehicles where seat memory is literally in the base trim, so I'm very shocked that the $66,000 EV9 has generally has very good features in it, but doesn't have seat memory. All right, rant over for that one. So getting in the vehicle, I will say, honestly, when I first got in here, I could not figure out how to start this vehicle. I was looking all around for a push to start button around here. I was looking for something maybe here, looking for something on the steering wheel or something like that. And I was like, I cannot figure out how to start this car. I thought maybe it was one of those vehicles where when you get in, it starts up, but clearly you can see it has not. So you guys might notice this little button right here on this little stalk that comes out of the steering wheel column. And that's how you start it. It's this power button. This is EV, which is kind of cool, I guess, like in a way. You get some cool animations when you start the vehicle. And I'm going to confirm the guest profile since this is a Turo rental. And look at these crisp graphics. We'll talk about the screens in a little bit, but I do want to talk about this stalk right here. It's very large, very, very bulky. Kind of gets in the way sometimes when you're reaching over, but it's generally pretty easy to use. This is quite simple. You twist forward, twist back for reversed, and then twist forward for drive. And I mean, it's pretty simple. You turn it off like this. It's very intuitive once you figure out where it is, but I definitely had to Google that first. All right, let's talk about the screens here. This is actually a single screen. It is 29.6 inches. It is beautiful. Kia calls it the combined panoramic display. And it's just very, very nice. Like this, I love how sturdy this looks. Like it doesn't look cheap. It doesn't look like it's coming out of the dashboard. Like this just looks very well put together. And I think Kia and Hyundai do that very nicely across their entire lineup. I also love how the HVAC controls are right here. It's a very interesting little mini screen right here. So the actual infotainment display right here is about 12.3 inches. And then it's also a 12.3 inch display for this digital gauge cluster section. But you've also got this additional small cluster right here for your air conditioning controls. And the climate controls are very, very nice. They look high quality, right? Like all of this stuff is very quick. And I like the kind of like, I don't know, it feels nerdy to have that be a plus and an X. I like it. You've got three-way auto, so you can make the fan speed lower, which I love. And just all of these are snappy to respond, very easy to touch, and just really, Kia did a fantastic job. This is like their next generation cabin, and I have very high hopes for, you know, the upcoming refreshes for some vehicles, because I think it's going to be very impressive. These are such cool buttons. They're haptic buttons built into the dash. I don't think I've ever seen that in another vehicle, and it just feels good and easy to use. So you can just kind of tap those, and like they actually are buttons, which is so interesting. So yeah, very, very interesting, unique setup here. Their map system, not the greatest, but it's not terrible. But the actual infotainment system here is so snappy. Like, look at these graphics. Smooth, as smooth as your smartphone, right? And like the resolution is incredibly high. Really, really gorgeous. And I do like their layout. This is honestly one of the best infotainment systems I've seen, especially for a non-luxury vehicle, especially at this price point as well. I love how the media shows in the bottom right corner while you're navigating other screens. Very, very cool. And yeah, you've got a host of different settings that you can configure here. All super intuitive, all very quick to respond. Feels just like a smartphone. And yeah, it's very intuitive. You do have a few different, like, you know, hidden screens, I would say, like this widget style thing right here, where you can control what actually shows in this widget as well. So it's kind of like a favorites list. Passenger talk is a cool function. You can talk to the people in the third row. Quiet mode basically puts everything to the front row so that you don't bother the passengers sleeping in the back if you have a large family on a road trip. This vehicle has really thought of everything. So I really think, like, look at this. Like, I love this display. Very, very snappy, very cool. The center area here is also very simple, right? You've got a nice volume knob here. The temperature controls are actually physical, which is super cool. So notice how you can't change the actual temperature itself up there, but there are physical buttons, super easy to hit. I love that, probably one of the best implementations I've seen of this. And then going down here, this is a very interesting thing that a lot of people have noted about that I think is quite funny. You can change this from just a USB port or just USB and charging to just a charging port by hitting that button. Now it won't actually put your music into the, like, it won't detect it as a USB device, and now it will. So it's super interesting. This is also these are both USB-C, so no USB-A on here anymore, unfortunately. These little Velcro things are actually an add-on from the person who drives this vehicle daily. But yeah, it's a very interesting setup that I have not seen that in other vehicles, so I thought that was kind of neat. All right, let's take a look at the steering wheel before we go into the driver display there. Steering wheel is pretty standard. You do have, I don't love this like kind of shiny plastic gray trim on the steering wheel, unfortunately. I really wish we had something a bit more like interesting, like a better finish or something like that. But the steering wheel itself feels good. It's leather, feels very, very nice, very easy, very light steering. So kind of what you would expect from a family hauler. You've got a favorites button here. Kia and Hyundai do that across all of their vehicles. They have a lot of different favorite buttons that you can configure, which is pretty cool. Notice that you have some tiny little paddle shifters here. This actually increases or decreases the regenerative braking. So you can kind of change that feel to what you like. I actually think their one pedal driving is quite good, so I would recommend probably doing the max regenerative braking, which I really like personally. You've also got adaptive cruise control with their highway assist functionality so that it does steer you. It can take over your steering wheel essentially, and you can change what displays in your digital gauge cluster using this button right here. This is going to be your audio mode, so this is going to be more of your audio controls, basically your media controls here, skip track, and change volume. I do love how they have two hidden buttons here underneath the steering wheel. You would normally expect some sort of heated steering wheel right there, but instead you've got the drive mode selector right here. You can cycle through them. A little annoying that you can't cycle the other way around, right? Because you just have to keep clicking this until you get to the drive mode you want. So it's not like a dial or anything like that, which I always think is a much more intuitive design. And then you can also use your four-wheel drive lock, which I don't know how many people are actually going to be using that. I don't know how many people will actually go off-roading in an EV9. Otherwise, all of these things feel very good. Kia and Hyundai always do a great job with their stalks. They all feel very, very like sturdy and just good to use, much more than you would expect from something like Nissan or some of the other competitors at, in the non-luxury brackets. All right, going into here, this is the 12.3-inch digital gauge cluster. Like I said before, it's not very configurable, unfortunately. It does change its appearance based on your drive mode, which is pretty cool. You can link it actually. So there's a setting that you can change to change the appearance of it, just kind of like those little like elements around the digital speedometer, for example. I have it linked to the drive mode right now, so it kind of changes its appearance based on that. And then you can change what's in the middle display. This is very similar to all other Kia products. I kind of wish they did more here because I really think adding a full screen map would have been super cool, something like that. But instead, all you really get are these few options. So you actually can't even display the media in here, which I think is very disappointing. I love being able to see the music that I'm listening to right here. You can't do that, unfortunately. I don't have a heads-up display on this one either, but the GT line does get a heads-up display, so I really wish it had that here. But really, this shows everything you need to know. You've got your mileage, your range on the right-hand side. You've also got your charge, so I'm at 82% right there, as you can see. This little auto thing right here also indicates how much regenerative braking you're using. You can just set it to auto, and it'll kind of change it dynamically based on your driving habits. But yeah, otherwise this is a pretty basic display. Not too interesting, but I do like the little Kia here for its little driving assistance display, I would say right here. Just really wish it had media controls there. All right, let's take a step back and take a look at the door panels here. So in terms of material usage in this vehicle, I do think that is really where you can tell that this is not a luxury vehicle. A lot of these things feel fine, right? Like it's not, and they have a nice use of different materials, right? Like all of these are different materials right here. It feels good. You've got some of that ASMR if you want to like, you know, feel it up and stuff like that. But this nice little like satin gray aluminum thing right here looks pretty good, feels good. The door handle feels good. You do have your heated steering wheel, which is 2-level. You've also got your ventilated seats and your cooled seats, which is pretty cool. That is actually standard on the Wind trim, which is super cool. I love ventilated seats being accessible on a middle trim like that. However, like I said, you don't have seat memory. I would love some seat memory because every time I scoot the seat back for any reason, I have to basically find my way back. Otherwise, all of these things feel very good. All these clicks and switches feel very, very high quality. I think they feel deserving of that almost 70K price tag in this vehicle. You got some other buttons here. You can open the frunk using this button. I think that's actually the only way to open the frunk. And then you've also got your lift gate there, but that is a power lift gate that you can press a button on the back there. You've got your electronic park brake, traction control, brightness, and your electric charging ports right there. Another thing I want to note is just the general trim on the vehicle. Most vehicles have some sort of distinguishable wood trim or something like that, right? Aluminum trim, I don't know, something that gives a little pop to the vehicle. Unfortunately, this vehicle doesn't really have that. So you've got this interesting vinyl cloth texture here, which I don't dislike, but I don't think it's the most interesting. This texture is also kind of an interesting one here. I also did want to note that there's little cubes right here, and that's a really funny thing to me, is that Hyundai and Genesis and Kia are just really into their cubes right now. It's definitely their like design language right now, and I honestly like it. I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, you'll notice a lot of this cabinet is very gray. It's a little gloomy. You've got the gray lights right now in Chicago. It's just a very, it's a vibe right now, I would say. Going into the door panel on the passenger side, you also do have your ventilated and heated seats, and otherwise it's not the most interesting door panel, right? I think it looks fine, but it doesn't really look like a $70,000 vehicle. I will say that the speaker grills look very, very cool, and these are actually the base sound system, so it's not a step up, unfortunately. The Meridian sound system comes with the Land trim, but this one is just the base sound system, and it's pretty hollow. It's not the greatest sound system. I'm actually quite disappointed for this price point. I feel like I've driven 40K, 50K cars that have a nicer base sound system. So if you are an audiophile, I do think you might want to step up to the Meridian sound system, and I think the only way you can get it is in that Land trim, which is about $70,000. I will say the Land trim comes with a lot of other goodies, like that 360 camera, which I really would recommend for such a huge vehicle like this. And I think it also gets you ambient lighting, which I really wish this vehicle had. Unfortunately, we don't have ambient lighting on this trim, which I also think is a little ridiculous at this price point, right? That's really where you can tell that this is not a luxury vehicle, because a lot of, you know, the base Mercedes will have ambient lighting now and things like that. I will say the speaker grille at the very front too looks very, very cool. I think they've done a good job with all of their speaker grills. All right, so let's take a look at these seats. So on first inspection, I didn't realize they were actually two-tone, but you can see it's dark gray, and I think these seats are beautiful. You've got this really interesting, like I've never seen this before, but it's basically like a, you can see my fingers back there, it's basically like a cloth that you kind of put over the headrest, and it actually is super comfortable. Many of my passengers have noted that this is extraordinarily comfortable and unique for a vehicle to have something like that. Also in typical, you know, Hyundai, Kia fashion, you've got this button right here, so I can actually move this seat from here, which is pretty cool. I love doing that, like, to my passengers to scare them. And then you've also got this nice pattern right here. Again, you've got those cube rectangles, whatever you want to call them. And I think it looks very nice. I think this looks reminiscent of kind of what I just saw on the Rivians, but it just looks this is a great seat design. I love it. It's kind of bolstered well, very comfortable, super easy to adjust it, make it very comfortable for long drives. Again, this is meant to be a family hauler, so the ultimate goal is to be comfortable for your family. You've got some nice stitching across here, and you'll notice this is perforated as well. This is actually their Syntex leather, so it's not real leather, but it feels very good, feels very high quality. You've also got large door pockets for any sort of water bottles or things you want to put in there. Going into the center here, you do have two large cup holders. And when I say large, I mean huge. Like, look at this. This thing would just jostle around. So you've got a bit of a smaller one here and a large one back there. So kind of nice if you want to bring like a larger water bottle. And you've also got this interesting thing that I really never know what this is for. Is it to put your phone there? Is it to put a pencil? Any sort of other things? But I will say it's pretty useful. I've been putting like a hotel key card, something like that goes pretty well there. This is a fingerprint sensor. From my history with using these on Kia and Hyundai products, it's not the best, but I do think they're probably improving that technology. I love the idea of being able to use a finger to identify which profile you're using. You've got auto hold, you've got hill assist. This is not a 360 camera, unfortunately. You just have a rear view camera, and you do have the parking sensors all across the front and rear. This is the wireless charging pad. This actually comes standard, which is really cool. Very easy to put your phone here. It's rubbery, it fits well, and you can see it kind of opens up to reveal some other stuff. You've also got a little bit storage right here, and then a little key area, which I don't really understand how this works, because I feel like my key fob would just slide back down there. Going into the floor here, again, as similar to most EVs, this is a flat floor. This is similar to other, the EV6, for example, and the Hyundai Ioniq 5. They've all got a flat floor thanks to its platform, and therefore you get a lot of storage right there, which is pretty cool. All right, now let's go into the second row here. So unfortunately, I can't actually show you guys the third row because, like I said before, it's covered in this liner right here, so it's not easy to put up, but it's very easy to access that third row if you need to. You have this button, very easily moves the second row forward, and that's the third row right there. It looks very usable. I think that's one of the biggest compliments people have given to Kia, is the fact that the third row is actually usable. All right, legroom and headroom is extraordinarily impressive on this vehicle. Like, wow. This, I mean, thanks to its boxy design, you've got tons of ample headroom. Like, look at this, really headroom for days. You have two cup holders here as well. So these are more normal size cup holders. This is probably meant for the rear passengers. You've also got this pull out right here for some more cup holders. And it does kind of lock wherever you want to put it, sort of thing. So like, you can change the position of that, which is pretty cool. You've also got those large door pockets as well for more storage. So as expected for a family hauler, you've got a lot of different storage options across this cabin. All right, here is the same two-tone color with black and gray. You've got that same little texture, which is very nice, very comfortable. You definitely don't feel any bumps or anything like that on the seats. You've also got some USB chargers on both of the seats right here. So again, this is a very practical vehicle, great for families. I think that's really what Kia was targeting here. They know the Telluride has been a big hit because of its practicality, its family-friendly design, and they wanted to take that even a step further with the EV9, and I think they've done a great job of that. Super beautiful cabin, honestly, in general. Again, the quality of the materials might not scream $70,000, but the usability does. You've got an interesting dual pane sunroof here, and it's actually literally two panels. So unfortunately, it's not one large one. You've got your HVAC controls here for the second row. So, I mean, this is what you expect from a lot of minivans and things like that, right? You've got climate controls up here. You have a very interesting texture on these, which I think is kind of hilarious that they spent money or time on that. You've also got some clothing hooks here. You've got a light there. You've got a little grabber handle, and you've got grabbing handles here. So again, this is very practical. This is really meant for a family. You've got a lot of great storage options, a nice little sturdy pocket right there, and just overall, this cabin is extremely impressive for families and really is meant to kind of replace that minivan. And I mean, if you take a look at this car compared to a minivan, what are you going to choose, right? This is such a more interesting vehicle, such a dynamic vehicle, such a head-turning vehicle. It's just really beautiful on the inside and on the outside. All right, so this is kind of a weird view of the third row. Again, those seats are folded down right there, but you can see if they were folded up, you have about that much trunk space, kind of where my backpack and the water bottles are. But you've got two cup holders right there and a bit of other storage options. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see those. And you've also got a speaker grill back there, so that's kind of where the audio projection happens if you're going to use the like passenger talk function from the front driver's seat. You've also got more pockets there, and you've also got a charger as well. So this really is great for kids. They can charge their video game stuff and like everything else, and it's just a really great cabin for a large family, complete 7-seater. You do actually have the option of getting a second row captain's chair configuration, so that would be great for 6 seats, and I honestly think that would probably be better because it makes it a lot easier to get to that 3rd row. With this setup, I will say it's a little difficult to get into the 3rd row. The area right here is not very large, and you'd have to move the seat pretty far forward, but again, it's easy. You've got some buttons here. You've actually got a button down there as well. All right, welcome to the driving impressions portion of the review. So what is the EV9 like to drive? I am stuck in some great Chicago traffic right now, so thought this would be a good time to kind of talk through this. So overall, I will say the driving experience on this car is fantastic. This is probably one of my favorite cars to drive, honestly. In general, like for a 3-row SUV, this car feels nimble, it feels agile. It does not feel nearly as big as it is. You know, this is a huge 3-row SUV, very boxy as well, so you definitely don't expect it to be aerodynamic, but I think the driving experience is just very easy. It's not a particularly sporty car or anything. I am excited to see what the EV9 GT is going to be like. I think that's coming out for 2026. That'll be super cool, but this car, like, it just floats along nicely. It handles extraordinarily well, especially in the snow. I drove it in a crazy snowy condition earlier this week in Chicago, and it handled it like a champ. It felt so easy to drive. Like, it didn't even feel like the ground was icy or anything like that. So I really do think this offers an extraordinarily good driving experience. Steering is very light, very easy to maneuver. Like I said, it doesn't feel boxy. You have a great visibility, large windows, everything like that. I do wish this was a panoramic sunroof, but unfortunately we've only got 2 panes, but it's fine. Again, this car is so practical, right? It's a huge vehicle, really can fit 7 or 6, depending on if you get the captain's chairs or not. And I think it fits them very easily. You get a lot of cargo capacity as well. And again, you know, you've got all those USB ports, all those cup holders, all the door panels, things like that. It's a very practical vehicle. So I think if you want a minivan, but want something a bit more stylish, I think this is a great alternative to that. Hyundai and Kia have been delivering for years with really, really great vehicles in this sort of segment. And this EV9 is no exception. And now that we're a little bit out of the traffic, going a little bit faster here, around 60 miles per hour now, and it is still quite quiet in here. Sound isolation is fantastic for a vehicle, honestly, this size, I would say. And in general, I think actually the higher trims have like an acoustic deadening glass or something like that, so it would be even more quiet. But at a stop, very quiet car. However, once you get a little bit higher freeway speeds and stuff, you do feel a little bit of NVH, noise, vibration, harshness. The road noise, wind noise it's not terrible, but you do have some large side mirrors that kind of definitely get a little bit of wind noise into the vehicle. This car is exceptionally comfortable for long car rides. You've got extraordinarily comfortable seats. I love these seats. They don't look particularly crazy or like, you know, fancy or anything like that, but they're super comfortable. These headrest things are very cool. Honestly, at first feels like they wouldn't be the most comfortable thing, but they are very, very comfortable, in fact. And I think the look of the seats is quite nice from the back, especially. You can see all the different textures, all the different cladding, and overall this car is just a very nice long haul drive, I would say. You've got about 280 miles of all electric range. I will say, even in the freezing conditions we've had here in Chicago, below 10 degrees Fahrenheit, I've been getting at least 250 miles on a full charge. So it's actually been quite impressive. And that is thanks to that heat pump that actually comes only in the wind trim or higher. You've got a heat pump that essentially helps the car maintain a hotter battery so that you don't lose as much range in these cold, frigid conditions. So personally, I would probably recommend stepping up to the Land trim. That one starts at just below $70,000, so definitely quite pricey. But honestly, all 3-row SUVs are relatively pricey these days, especially if you're considering a minivan. Those can easily get above $50K now. So if you want a cool EV that looks awesome and gives you a lot of great standard tech, this is a very good alternative. And really, I would consider this a luxury vehicle, right? Like, it's certainly priced like one. The looks feel like a luxury vehicle. Some of the interior doesn't quite match up, I would say. Some of the material choices aren't exactly what I would say are, you know, premium or luxurious or anything like that. Certainly not going to be as nice as a Mercedes, a Lexus, you know, some of those alternatives. But I do think this is certainly very comfortable, very worthy of that high price tag, especially because of the driving experience. The dynamics are fantastic. Just overall a really great vehicle to drive. So the land trim is the one that gives you the 360 camera, which I do think honestly is a necessity when you're driving around a vehicle this big. And it also gives you the ambient lighting, which I don't think is super impressive, but I just personally love ambient lighting. You also get the nicer sound system, which I think is very important for me personally, since I really like good sounding audio in my vehicles. And then of course, what I talked about with the exterior, I love those little cube LED designs next to the daytime running lights. Those are super cool, and unfortunately you only get them on the higher trims. So I think they really make this car stand out a lot more. They make it look a lot more special. Overall, I think this is a very compelling package. The price is pretty high, and I think some people will balk at that just because it's a Kia, right? Kias aren't historically known to be very nice vehicles, but I do think Hyundai and Kia are doing a really great job lately kind of transforming their image, right? This is a fantastic looking vehicle, getting great reviews all around, and I think overall Kia is still on a really good path forward with revitalizing their lineup and just making everything look really nice. So that's pretty much all I wanted to talk through today. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. If you want to check out some of my other reviews, you can click up here, subscribe down here, and I will talk to you guys in the next review. Thanks, everyone. Bye.